first speaker this morning is the former international president of the IBM. He's a lifetime member of pretty much every organization. He had a renewed interest in collecting about a dozen years ago, and today he's going to talk to us about somebody who's had a tremendous influence on his life, Andre Cole. So put your hands together for David Sandy.
Thank you. All right. Well, it's great to be in Blowing Rock, North Carolina. We're going to fly in, but since we decided to do this, we ended up driving, and it was like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. But I am very pleased to be here this morning and speak on a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. So I have my notes here, so forgive me as I refer to the notes through the presentation. Andre Cole is known to many as a performer, but it is his incredible legacy as a creator that we're going to talk about this morning. September 30th, 1936, is Robert Gertler. He was interested in magic at the age of 7 because of a Christmas gift he got from his mom. It was a book called Peter Rabbit the Magician. I'll tell you, it's a very cool book, and I'll show you in just a moment. He was eventually mentored by Moxo the Magician, Barky Baker, in his Arizona hometown. But initially, he was going at things alone, and in a way, that forced his creativity. He'd go through magic catalogs and come up with his own solutions for the tricks advertised. As a teenager, young Bob Gertler was gaining a lot of attention locally and beyond for his performances and for his creative thinking. Watch this. Something similar that maybe we've seen in the Abbott's catalog. Uh-oh. She's gone. Here's the part that fooled magicians, though. Eventually, Robert Gertler became Andre Cole. And here's a fun bit of trivia. His name is Cole with a K. This spelling was suggested to him by Marvin Roy. And that's Marvin with a Y. The name change probably occurred in the early 1960s. It's the first time in print in a magic its first time in print was in a magic publication in the January 1964 MUM. Working with and for Campus Crusade for Christ, Andre toured his own illusion show for over 50 years in more than 80 countries of the world, arguably performing in more countries than any other magician has before or since. This is young Andre. You can see on his table his initials RJG. I'm very fortunate to have his early props, and his name Gertler was across everything. He was very much into branding back then. Here's the book I mentioned earlier, Peter Rabbit the Magician. Anyone have this? Yeah, it's a very cool book. It was like an interactive book, like an early version, maybe more primitive version of the Mark Sedicati book, where there's magic within the book. And a little interesting story. I always remember Andre telling me that it was the book Peter Rabbit the Magician that got me into magic. Well, about 3 years ago, we had some people visit our house, or we have a magic room and theater in our house, and they were impressed, and the guy came back a few weeks later with a paper sack and said, I used to do magic when I was a kid. This guy's probably nearly 80 years old. I used to do magic when I was a kid, and I got a little present for you I'd like you to have. And opened up the sack and pulled out Peter Rabbit the Magician. First time I'd seen the book, and I instantly recognized it. So it became a very wonderful addition to my collection, and all the little pieces, every page, has a trick on it, little pieces and things that happen. It's very cool. Since I've collected several other copies. So a story often repeated about Andre is that he wouldn't go to sleep until he had invented or created at least 3 pieces of magic a day. Now think about that for just a moment. 3 new tricks a day. That's nearly 11 100 newly invented magic tricks or illusions each and every year. He filled notebook after notebook with ideas. In fact, the margins of his school textbooks would become filled with sketches and notes for tricks and illusion ideas. In fact, these are just a few of thousands of pages of Andre's actual drawings. You know, when he had an idea, he felt like it was important to sketch it out, write it down, and literally thousands of pages like this. An interesting side note, when Andre was in school in a speech class, the class assignment was to give a speech or presentation for the entire class. The teacher had taught them that every good speech should begin with something memorable, something to capture the audience's interest or attention. When it came for young Bob Gertler to present, he got up to the front of the class to begin. He lifted his hand, and a ball of fire shot across the classroom. As Andre tells the story, it scared the hell out of his teacher, and she immediately flunked him. It's a true story. By Andre's own admission, not all of his ideas were winners. In fact, Andre would say that it was about one, if he invented 16 new tricks, maybe one of them was a decent one. Maybe one was a keeper. A lot of his ideas, though, were great ideas. Here's just a few of the Andre Cole creations maybe you've seen on stages or televisions around the world, performed by Andre or maybe even someone else. You might recognize them. The walking on water, the levitation, squeeze box, fusion blocks. There's a pyramid. There's another fusion. There's the gospel illustration, another pyramid. Gosh, it just goes on. Thrill of death, the Bermuda Triangle, just passing through. David Copperfield doing squeeze box. There's through the steel plate. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. In fact, I asked Tim, is there actually a list compiled of every magic trick Andre had invented or created? And unfortunately, there's not. So now let's talk about a few specific creations. Before he created a way to make the Statue of Liberty disappear, or to invent 40 different methods of making the moon disappear, yes, the moon, Andre invented a piece of apparatus that many of you probably have owned or do own at one point or another. It's so commonplace now, it's even found in many beginner magic kits. You recognize it? Yeah, the spiked screw balloon.
This was put out by U.F. Grant, and the spike screw balloon trick, putting a balloon in here and then sticking the spikes through it and then showing it. Well, I'll show you this was a prototype of that. It was a tube, and I just cut pieces out of a clothes hanger, and as you can maybe see, well, I think I can show you there. It was just too complicated to do the 3 spikes going through different ways. So that's why when we put it out with U.F. Grant, we just came up with this version to make it much easier to manufacture and put out.
The effect was released sometime in 1957 or 1958, was manufactured by U.F. Grant, as Andre stated. At the Magic Dealers Association conference in 1958, the spike screw balloon was awarded the best-selling trick of the year in the category for tricks over $2. In fact, here's an early ad. There it is, $5 in the Tannen catalog. The trick earned a 4-star review in the April 1958 issue of Genie magazine. The effect was apparently even later performed by Johnny Carson on The Tonight Show. Variations of this Andre Cole creation, sprung up, candle through arm, the Turkish turmoil, which was a knife, double knives through balloon, and different variations of that. So that's the spike screw balloon. Since my acquisition of the Andre Cole collection, there's been one piece of magic that I've been asked about more than any other piece of all the illusions. One piece people seem to be interested in. Watch this. Like Jeff McBride. incidentally, that piece of music was one of Andre Cole's favorite songs, and that's the theme from Somewhere in Time, and that's what he used when he performed Helicopter Cups. And unbeknownst to me, that is my favorite song as well. Completely independent. I love that song. I play it on the piano all the time. When Tim told me that Andre used that, for this iconic invention of his, it was special to me. Around 1954, Bob Gertler was developing a clear glass spirit cabinet. One of the things he wanted to do was place a ball in the glass tumbler and cover with another, and then have it visibly escape. When he worked out the method, it gave him the idea for two other tricks. One of them, which was the first method, for what is now known as helicopter cups, which you just saw. Just before the 1955 PCAM convention, Bob went through his notes to pick out something small and new that he could do with the convention. The helicopter cups was the one he selected. At the convention, as you saw, oh wait a minute, yeah, you haven't seen it in the video because I haven't played the video.
Well, I
Here's
think
the video.
one of my favorites was the helicopter cup trick. Went to a PCAM, Pacific Coast Association of Magicians program, California, and I did that in the program. And after the program, an elderly man came backstage and said I had completely fooled him, and he loved the trick so much, he wanted to know if there's any way that he could have permission to do that. And I said, no, I'm really not interested in selling that or getting permission to do that. And they said, well, that was such a great trick, it just completely fooled me. I'd really, if you ever want to do that, let me know. And I thanked him, and he went away, and Ed Keeter, who was on the show, says, Andre, do you know who that man was? I said, no. He says, he's probably the greatest authority on the history of magic in the world today. His name is Dr. Harlan Tarbell. The Tarbell goes to magic.
Well, at the convention, as you saw in the video, I should have played earlier, despite my big notes, I should have played video. Dr. Harlan Tarbell and many others were so impressed by the helicopter cups that Bert Easley offered Robert, or Andre, the opportunity to market it as a commercial item. But here was one of the first ads. It fooled everybody who saw it at the 1955 PCAM and SAM combined convention. Prize-winning trick of the year. So there's Andre. That was one of the early ads, Bert Easley's Fun Shop. And this was Andre's first wife, Algene, who unfortunately left Andre much too young as a result of cancer. Robert signed a contract with Bert to market one of his original effects every 2 months. And it was reported that in the January 1956 issue of Genie that they already had 4 effects on the market and many more ready to go. Here's the ad. Helicopter cups. Here's the Gertler's Atomic Stockpile, which you've probably seen this. I mean, Bill Adams, most recently with Manufactured itself, the Gertler Funnel, and the Intangible Clock. Those were the first 4 that were marketed. Also, as a matter of interest, Art Baker, the host of the television program You Asked For, was the MC for the big shows at the convention. It was just over a year later that Robert Gertler appeared on that particular TV show. I have no information to support that the 2 facts are related, but it does seem more than coincidental. Just after his success on the West Coast, Andre attended the TAON convention. That appearance won him the Al Sharp Award for Creativity and Originality, and was strong enough to earn him 3 separate write-ups in the October 1955 issue of the Lincoln Ring. 3 different write-ups in the same issue. Frank Werner writes that, quote, Gertler just about stopped the conclave cold with his new magic and effects and pleasing showmanship. In this reviewer's opinion, the entire magic world will be hearing and seeing a lot of this very young genius in the future. He received an ovation which made the job of the judges easy when awarding the trophy. Al Sharp, for whom the award is named, said, one of the nicest things about the convention was the modesty shown by Bob Gertler, especially since he came, saw, and conquered. It was only natural that he should have won the Al Sharp Trophy, and this he did. Gertler is a true artist in deception, and his diabolic presentation is unbelievable at his very young age. This youngster, like time, will march on each year to greater and greater achievements. Just to make the audience thirsty, he presented his original conception of a penetration of a glass of wine. And it goes on from there. Of course, that would have been the helicopter cups. Clearly, the effect, which was now being sold by Burt easily made an impact, the helicopter cups, because only 1 month later, Ring Report started touting performances of the helicopter cups at local ring meetings. The first such mention was in Houston. By January of 1956, the Academy of Magic Arts had awarded helicopter cups the Commercial Trick of the Year award. Yes, it won another award. A personal story regarding helicopter cups and myself. Over the years, I would bring Andre's show into the Missouri Theater, beautiful 1,200-seat theater in St. Joseph where I live. Oftentimes he was brought in by churches and stuff, but I actually would rent the theater, bring it in, and present it, just like, any other magic spectacular in the theater. And he never did helicopter cups for some reason. But he always liked to unload the truck whenever he was coming in, because it was a beautiful theater and we were friends, and he just wanted to give me the full Monty there as far as. I mentioned to him the second before last time I brought him, I brought the show in 5 or 6 times. I said, I've never seen helicopter cups. I read about it. So the last time I brought him in, unbeknownst to me, about maybe a third of the way through the show, he sets up helicopter cups. They bring the cups out, just like you saw, and Andre started the routine. And about 20 seconds into it, it stopped. And Andre stopped, sent the guy off. Something had happened. Something went wrong. So still, I never got to see helicopter cups after he went to all the trouble of adding it to the show so I could see it. Fortunately, at his last performance of his career in Phoenix, I was there and he did helicopter cups, so I got to see him in person. Andre was aware of the, as Stan Allen phrased it in a question to him, serious, almost deadpan style of his performances. To that, Andre said, if my only purpose was to perform just a magic show, my presentations would be far more along the lines of the flash, bang, boom style of my son, Tim Cole. However, my ultimate purpose goes beyond that of pure entertainment. With the spiritual dimension included in each of my performances, I am dealing with life and death matters. He continues, Tim is a much better performer on stage than I have ever been. He has a much stronger, dynamic stage presence. Like David Copperfield, Tim can take one of my illusions and end up with a much stronger presentation than I could possibly be capable of. That's just part of the humility of Andre. Andre would go on to would eventually become the go-to creator for many in our industry, none so more than David Copperfield. His name appears in the credits of numerous Copperfield television specials, and Andre's illusions did lead to strong presentations for many, many other notables in magic. Which brings us to this.
The Table of Death.
The Table of Death.
The Table of Death.
One night I was laying in bed and got the idea of a bed of spikes being up above and chained down and have to get out of that. And the Table of Death came out as a result of that. My first national television, my second national television was doing the Table of Death on the Art Maker show. You asked for it. And then when Mark Wilson asked me to come and do it for the Magician Show with Bill Bixby, well, in the beginning of the show, I presented, I supposedly got killed. And they were making the movie, so it was supposed to be Bill Bixby as a magician that come back and did the illusion. And so it got to the place where it was just about to fall. If it had fallen where he was, he would have been killed. And so I ran up and says, "Thank God you saved my life."
I did some experimenting and came up with the first model of the Table of Death. We had many interesting experiences. matches, many close calls. But then later on, David really developed that and made it into one of the most exciting escapes that has ever been done.
He designed it to go a step beyond anything that Houdini had done before, making it the most dangerous escape. The handcuffs are sealed, so I can't open them with a key. The spikes are quite solid, and it is very, very scary in there.
No, the Table of Death is a very dangerous illusion. One of the first times that I performed it, I was getting out of it and I couldn't get my foot loose. And I actually had to wiggle my foot out of my shoe. And when the thing came down, the spikes went through the shoe.
Table of Death has become a defining moment for Andre Cole in more ways than one. The idea for the Table of Death occurred to an 18-year-old Robert Gertler in 1954. Tim believes that this might have been the first large-scale illusion that his father built. In his own words, Andre has said, "I spent nearly 1 year designing, building, and perfecting a prototype for what eventually became the Table of Death. The result was an illusion that would give the audience the impression that something had gone terribly wrong, that I had failed to escape, and that I had been hopelessly impaled by the bed of spikes. I risked death each and every time I tested the invention. Indeed, the first time I tested the prototype, my mother began to cry and refused to watch for fear the apparatus might malfunction and kill me." After speaking with Tim Cole more just a few days ago about this original version, I can understand why, because you see this prototype that Andre built was made from old railroad ties and railroad spikes that he had gathered out in the Arizona desert. It really did, as Andre says, scare the hell out of his mother. There is a danger to the effect, and Andre himself was nearly killed twice in the performance. Andre was present for a time that the prop malfunctioned and really injured David Copperfield. And as he referenced in the video, he did save Bill Bixby's life. To elaborate a bit on that Bixby situation, in the TV show The Magician, Andre performed the illusion on screen and his character was killed by the spikes. Later in the show, Bill Bixby's character is to perform it. Bixby wasn't comfortable in sliding out of the way, and he slightly changed the position in making the escape. Andre saw this error in the taping and rushed to stop the action before the error. Though Bixby was clear of the knives, the heavy corner of the rack would have crushed his head. The act was again rehearsed another dozen times before the scene was shot, with everyone saved. The Table of Death was first presented on April 15, 1955. The effect itself is terrifying, but I'm kind of trying to imagine myself in this scenario. This is before the last 50 years worth of Magician in Peril and Escape Gone Wrong plots that we've all seen. Imagine an 18-year-old doing this effect that was essentially built in his garage. Sounds terrifying. And in fact, this first performance was one of the 2 times that Andre nearly died in the performance. Just over a year later, on November 25th, 1956, he debuted on Art Baker's You Asked For It television show. The Table of Death and its various permutations have become a defining moment of heart-pounding terror in the performances of many others. After having exclusively performed it for 20 years, Andre began licensing it in 1974. It has been licensed to Lance Burton, David Copperfield, Brett Daniels, Robert Gallup, Doug Henning, John Harapala, Mark Palin, Jay Owenhouse, Richard Thomas, Mark Wilson, Steve Wyrick, as well as to Don Wayne and Jim Steinmeier, and Paramount Pictures Television obtained a license for its inclusion in the aforementioned TV series The Magician. It was actually Andre's prop that was in that series that you saw, and Tim Cole remembers going with his dad for the taping and transporting the entirety of that massive prop in the back of their station wagon. Also, Act Small plays real big. Also, by this time, Andre was performing for Campus Crusade for Christ, the organization that Andre devoted his life's work and both of his performance career to. Because of the real danger involved in the escape, he was asked if perhaps he could replace it with something less dangerous. In 1998, Andre's Table of Death gave its creators an all-new type of heart racing terror. There's the Table of Death, the early days, and then here's the terror that the table brought to Andre. On November 24th, 1997, Fox Television and Nash Entertainment produced and aired a special called Breaking the Magician's Code, Magic's Biggest Secrets Finally Revealed. After huge ratings, the network readied a second special. Andre was on tour when he received an urgent call from illusionist Mark Kalin. Mark told Andre that the table was being used to promote a second exposure TV special, which was set to air in less than 2 weeks. Kalin was in a particularly difficult situation because he was set to tape his presentation of the Table of Death for NBC's World's Most Dangerous Magic, and this risked him getting cut from the show. After discussions with Kalin's attorney, Andre's attorney, and others, 8 days before the show, Andre was told that to take legal action for a restraining order and injunction would cost at least $20,000, and that a poll had been taken of other attorneys, and this poll gave very little hope for success. Andre said, "Go for it anyway." And he said he would have $5,000 to the attorney in the morning and would guarantee the raising of the rest of the funds from friends who promised to be part of the legal action against Fox Television. This is actually the lawsuit. I was involved in this, participated in it, and I actually have an original copy of the lawsuit there. And my last trip out there, I thought it'd be meaningful if Andre would sign in front of it. So you're welcome to look at this at some point if you want. It's a great read, legal. On November 24th, 1997, Fox Television and Nash Entertainment produced and aired a I've already said that, haven't I? Immediately, the attorney's firm went to work. On the other side, the attorneys at Fox hired an additional law firm to oppose us. 4 days before the show was to air, word came down that the Table of Death would be removed from the show and from the promotion of the program. It was a temporary victory. Like I said, it was a temporary victory because the Table of Death was rescheduled to be included in the third installment of the special. And so on April 29, 1998, a lawsuit was filed by Andre Cole against Nash Entertainment and Fox Broadcasting Company. That's the lawsuit. Declarations for the plaintiff were written by Mark Kalin, John Hirakawa, Don Wayne, Bill Smith,